Alright, you're welcome to this video. Now in this video we are going to look at a simple project, and this project we shall build it in Python, PySide 6, C++, JavaScript and VBA. Now JavaScript we shall go ahead to integrate CSS and HTML. In VBA we shall integrate Microsoft Excel. I'm still your instructor, Emmanuel Dudu, for this course. Now we have the task which we are going to work on. The task is simple, where a trader deals with a sale of 3 items, and they have given us the cost price, the selling price, and the quantity that trader sells. So they want us to create a program which will calculate the trader's profit and the percentage profit. Now, as simple as it is, we are going to transform it into a mega project. Now, by the end of this session, we shall be guided by the following learning outcomes. Should be able to explain fundamental business concepts such as the cost price, selling price, profit, and the percentage profit. Should also be able to apply mathematical formulas to compute the profit and the percentage profit, and other calculations we shall see. Should also be able to design appropriate data structures to represent real-world entities. Should also be able to implement solutions using multiple programming languages and environments. Should also be able to analyze program output to make informed decisions. One of the outputs we shall create will be a CSV file. Should also be able to evaluate program robustness through validation and error handling. Should also be able to create extensible and reusable software. Now, in the previous case, we have seen 3 products. Can you extend this product to handle more than only 3? Can you extend this application to handle more than 3 products? Now, we have keynotes to take here. Like I said, we shall use Python, JavaScript, VBA to accomplish this task. Alongside, we shall build a graphical user interface application. So, I'm very confident that if you build this in C++, it will not be hard for you to do the same in C language. And the same thing, if you can do it in JavaScript, actually there's some relation in the syntax with C# and Java. So actually you can also build this using Visual Basic, because if we learn how to use Visual Basic for applications, which comes in Microsoft Excel, I'm pretty sure you can build this in Visual Basic. Now you can run to AI to give you the solutions, but in this course I'm going to give a detailed explanation. Before we start a concept, I will entirely explain the concept before we apply it. Now, what are some of the requirements for you to kickstart this course? You should have at least Visual Studio Code installed on your PC, whether it is Windows, Linux or Mac. So you should also have Python. Alternatively, we shall see how to use Google Colab. So you should also have, for a graphical user interface application, you should have PySide 6 installed. So you should also have Dev C++. In case you don't have Visual Studio Code, Dev C++ helps us to run C++ and C programming languages. You should also have Microsoft Excel installed, at least version 2010 and above. You should also have a text editor. So we have a variety: Notepad, Sublime Text, and many others, but I will recommend Visual Studio Code because it is a rich text editor. Like I had mentioned earlier, the JavaScript will go ahead, we shall involve HTML and CSS for styling. So when we proceed with the requirements, you also need a Windows PC, actually a Windows 10 PC or 11. And then you should also, in case you're using Ubuntu, it is okay. In case you're using Mac, it is okay. So you only need to have all the software installed. So the last section, we shall see how to use AI to solve that very problem. So a keynote is there's no experience required. Now about me, I'm a teacher by profession, and on the screen there is a variety of skills which I'm capable of to do, from basic networking, basic cybersecurity, programming languages, C++, C, JavaScript, Python, basics in data science, machine learning, office applications, scripting, HTML, CSS, structured query language, mention it. So in case you are in need of a serious, competent, and skill-driven, don't hesitate to hook up on me. My contacts were there on the screen. Now, my teaching philosophy. My approach is around Bloom's taxonomy, whereby I embark on project-based approach to learning. Now, this helps learners to gain real-world application and create build real-world knowledge on how things run in the real world. Now, I design learning activities that progressively develop cognitive skills, starting with foundational knowledge, advancing through analysis and evaluation. So, in the courses, in the projects we are going to develop, if it is C++, we start by explaining the concepts, then go ahead to apply the concepts, and then we finally apply the solutions we have got across multiple programming languages. Now, my instructional strategy still. Each topic is introduced through a real-life problem. To establish relevancy and motivation, learners first demonstrate understanding of the core concepts such as the profit. So, I first explain the profit, what about the cost price, what about the percentage profit, etc. before we go ahead to apply it. So, as we conclude this, I also make sure there's engagement through questions and answers. So to accommodate diverse learning styles, the same problem is implemented across console-based applications, then graphical user interface applications. Like I said, we shall use PySide 6. So frequent pauses of reflection on questions and different scenarios will be done throughout this course. Then lastly, industry and academic relevancy. So this project emphasizes transferable computational thinking skills. So by the end, we shall be able to think like developers in the field. So the inclusion of validation, error handling, and user interaction mirrors real-world professional practice. So that is exactly what we are going to do. We are going to make sure our application is able to handle errors and everything which will show up. So in every software development process, there are stages which are followed, or phases. Now the first phase is the requirements gathering. Now under this phase, we document what the system should do. An example, to calculate the profit. So we start building on from there, and the percentage profit, to start planning. So in the planning stage, we define the scope, the timeline, we define the resources, and the risks involved. So we define the resources like, I will use Python, I will use Visual Studio Code, I will need maybe to hire somebody to support, I maybe need to buy the design. So that's where I will plan. I will plan on how long I will take on the project, that's the timeline. So I will also plan the design. Here, you can simply create system architecture, data models, and UI interface. So the interface is what you interact with, what the users interact with. So you can simply design this interface on paper before you go ahead to implement it in the code. Development, write and integrate the actual code. Now this code you can simply also write it on paper before you implement it. So we go to the testing stage. After you've written everything, like we shall see, always test to verify the functionality, whether it really meets the user requirements, because at first you gather the user requirements. Then deployment, release the software to users or production. So in case you created an executable file or a website, release it for use. Maintenance, update, optimize, and support the system. So after developing a system or a website, follow up and always do maintenance. So that is how you keep yourself engaged and employed. So this brings us to the end. So by the end, you should be able to think like a software developer. Software development follows a clear life cycle from understanding the problem to maintaining the solution. So the problem is capture the profit and many other problems you will encounter in the field. So you must identify the problem, understand it, and you have to keep the solution on track. So if you're excited to learn with me, so get ready and let's get started. So for us to use C++ on Windows, first we need a compiler. And the compiler we shall use minigw. So how will you download that? You'll head to this link to download the MSY2 compiler. So come and copy this link, go to your favorite browser and paste it there, then search. So come and download the 64-bit if you have a 64-bit system. I don't know whether this is 32-bit, but download the 64-bit in case you have the 64-bit. So when you click download, it will come and settle in your downloads folder, somewhere here in your downloads. So double click it to open or to run. Follow the prompts and install it. Just click next, next, and install it. So after installation, you will now need to, actually immediately it finishes installation, it will open. Let me try to open it here. It will open this small terminal window. So from this terminal window, type in this command. All of it the way it is, you can copy and paste. Actually, from the website, I'm sure they provide it. Let me look through the list. There is one here. So in short, just come and copy this command and paste it here, just like this. Then press enter. So it will install all the packages, just like this, just that everything is installed. It's the one I'm currently using. So if it says, do you want to install all default packages, just press enter, then press Y to confirm. It will have to install that to your system. Now, after installation, you now need to add this compiler to your system variables. So first of all, locate the folder where it is installed. Come to your C drive, then come to MYS2, MSYS64, and then come and look for UCRT64, then come and look for the bin folder. So come to the address bar here. I don't know whether it is the address bar. Right click and copy. So after copying that, you can come and press the Windows button and search for Edit, System Environment Variables. Come to Advanced, come to Environment Variables, then come to System Variables, come to Pass, click on Edit, then click on New. To add this, click on New, then add it here, paste it here. Remember we copied it earlier. Then click OK, just like this. But because I already have it, I'll have to remove it because I already have it here. I'll have to delete this. So if you come back to your terminal or command prompt and you type in G++, and then you type in version space version, you'll be able to see the version of the compiler which is installed on your PC. So that is how you would have the compiler installed. Now we need the editor. The editor we shall use Visual Studio Code. Use this link to download Visual Studio Code. Head down to your browser, paste in this link. I've provided it here, and then download the Windows version, because I'm looking at how do you work on Windows. Download the Windows version and run the installer. After installing, and then we shall now go and open the Visual Studio Code. So we shall open VS Code. Upon opening Visual Studio Code, I think I'll have to make the window smaller. After downloading Visual Studio Code, we shall now go ahead to install this extension. Come to the extensions library, just here, click on it. I think mine is taking long to respond. Then come and search for C/C++ extension pack. I think I have it here. Just come and search C/C++ extension pack. It is by Microsoft, and install it. Also search for C and C++ extension. I think, let me just search for that one also. I think it is this one here. There's a difference between the extension pack and C/C++. They're all both from Microsoft, so search and install both of them. And then also, I think let us try to uninstall one, mostly the extensions pack uninstall. Let us pretend that it is not installed and we try to install. Okay, it is installed. Then also search for C/C++ runner. I think it must be on the list here if it is not there. So after running and installing all these extensions, we shall be able to write our C++ code. So for us to write our C++ code, come to File, open folder. I'll create a folder on the desktop. I think I have one called C++ folder. I'll select that folder. So when you come here in the File Explorer here, or in the Explorer, you'll see the folder I have here. I think let me create a new folder, because I need to create a new project. I'll just leave it as new folder. So in this new folder, I have an option here. Just close this. I have an option here of new file, then new folder. Click on new file. I'll call this first.cpp. Remember, it's a C++ program. So come here and write the starting lines, #include, and then put the iOS stream, and then I think I don't need the vector, don't need this. I'll come and say int main. So I'll have something like this. So for us to run, I think, let me close this. For us to run this program, come to the play button here, or the run button, then click on run code. Just like this. And it will display the output here in the output window here. So that is how you do install C++ on Windows. Okay, now in case you don't have access to Visual Studio Code and you don't want to use Visual Studio Code, but you still want to run C++ and C in Windows, come and download Dev C++. Using this link, I'll copy it, go to your favorite browser. Then in your browser, come and search for Dev C++. So head down to the download section and download. You can purchase the USB part of it, or you can just download this and install it on your PC. Click download. So upon downloading, you'll get the file. Okay, it is not even it is not a large file. It is just equivalent to 46 megabytes. So in case you want to use dev C++, download it. After downloading, you'll have an executable like this. In my downloads, I think I don't have it here, but after downloading, you'll have something like that. Your file is ready for download. First block this. So after downloading, you will now be ready to use dev C++. However, I'm going to provide a link which can take you direct to the downloads folder on my Google Drive. Now, what is the good with dev C++? After downloading, make sure you install it so that you'll have an installer. You'll have a shortcut like this, dev C++. Now, when you have this, you don't need to install any compiler for C++ and C programming languages because it is self-contained. So you also don't need to always copy the installation path of the compiler to the system or the user environment variable. When you have this, you have it all. So come and launch dev C++, come to File, then come to New, then Project. So you can choose a console project, C++. If you want C, you can just choose C. I'll choose C++, give the project a name, click OK. It will take us to a point where we should save it somewhere. I'll create a folder on the desktop. I'll call it C++. I'll open it and save it there. So here is where the whole party starts and ends. So you can come and write your program here. I'll start by just sampling. I'll say using namespace std. So I'll come down here and I'll say cout hello world, just like this. So come to execute, then compile and run. It will ask to save this with this name, or you can change it based on the program you're creating. This name will be changed over here, this one here, and click save. So it will compile and run the code, and it will display a console window just like this with the output hello world. And that is how you can use dev C++ to create C++ and C programs. Now, to use C++ or run C++ on Linux, first of all, come and run this command in the terminal to install Visual Studio Code. Come to your terminal and then paste this command, or just type it the way it is here. I'll just copy it and I paste it in my terminal. Right click, paste, then run. It will ask for the password. Put your account password and press enter. It is saying your command includes some characters, but home actually maybe it has copied something, or I don't know, something here. It is 2 spaces. Then come over here and press enter. So it will download and install Visual Studio Code. I already have it. I'll terminate the process by Ctrl C. So after you've installed Visual Studio Code, launch Visual Studio Code and install these 3 packs or packages. Like we have seen, to install Python, also just search for, actually to also install Visual Studio Code in Windows, also search for C/C++ extension pack and all these other 2 and install them. Now step 2, we need a compiler. For the compiler, come and run this code also in the terminal. I'll clear my terminal. So come and paste this command, then try to run. It is also saying not found. I think I must also make some change here. Then run it again. Oh, there's S here. There's supposed to be S here. So I'll come back at the start, the sudo, and then I'll press enter. So it will install. Building dependency done, everything has been installed. So if you have not installed it, it will have to install, and you'll have everything to run C++ on Debian or Ubuntu versions of Linux. So I've not made for Mac because I don't have a Mac PC. So in case I get one, I'm going to straight away create one on how to use the Mac. Now when you open Visual Studio Code, you will always also first create a folder, then create the project and run the project or the C++ project. So come and create, I'll maximize this, come to file, then open folder. On the desktop, I'll create a folder named C++. Okay, I only want to select this folder and click open. I'm opening it in Visual Studio Code. Create a file. I'll create this file as first.cpp. So I'll close this welcome window. So you can now come and create what we usually do. Write the first lines, #include the preprocessor directive IO_stream. Then we shall use the namespace std. We shall define the main function, and we shall have something to print here. Come and click on run code or run C++ file. I'll run the code and we shall see the output here, hello world. So that is how, I think it is highlighting something here, that is how you would run C++ code in Visual Studio Code on Linux. Alright, let us start this section. Now before we start, there are key questions which you may be interested in knowing. I'm still your instructor, Emmanuel Gidudu, for now. Now, there are several things you may be asking yourself. These are some of the key questions you should ask yourself before we start. Provoke your minds before we start. Now, in the phases of software development, we have the requirements gathering stage, the planning, design, development, testing, deployment, and maintenance. So the questions are, do you have all the information required before we start this project? So that is an example, the cost price, the selling price. What do you expect to change? Because you can't develop this project expecting it to work for 100 years. You must prospect any changes. So note down the changes. Perhaps move down to the client and ask questions. Then document the findings about the project. Now, if it is this trader in town, I'll go down to the trader in town and I say, what else do you need? What else do you think this business will change? After 2 years, what do you expect? So in my maintenance stage, after I've deployed and given it to the client, I'll go back down and start working on basing on what I collected from the trader. So plan the duration you'll take on the project. So resources you'll need, the software, etc. So create your design on paper. An example is the interface. So this interface, write it on paper. How do you want it to look? So if it is displaying maybe should I say window components, how do you want them to appear? You can write them on paper, draw them on paper, and then you can implement it. So create your design, draw it on paper. If it is a database, write down the structure, how the tables will look like, then the relationships, etc. So another key thing to look out here for, write and implement the code finally. So here, before you write the code, feel free to write it down on paper. So before you go on PC to write, test the application to ensure functionality meets user requirements. So test the application during development, then after development, perhaps get somebody to help you test the application. Then later on, deliver the product to the user or the client. So do not sit back and relax after you have delivered the product to the client. Always maintain such that you can stay live in the field. So we shall proceed here. Now, I know you may be asking a question in your minds, mostly if you're a student of computer science, information technology, or another ICT field. Now, what is the purpose? What's the relevancy of this course to me? Then you may also be asking yourself, I don't have a portfolio. How will I land a job? So the question here is, what if I'm a computer science student who needs to build my portfolio? So for every job advertised, they always ask for experience. Unfortunately, you can't get experience when you have not worked, and you can't work when you have no experience. So that circle is very terrible, moving around. So my answer is very simple. Now, while you're outside there, somebody may tell you, please build a tic-tac-toe. This may end you into mess. So I'm saying, build real-world applications that solve real-world problems. So remember, as a computer scientist, science is there to solve problems. So always look out for problems. So look around your environment to find gaps. Actually, look for gaps, either in existing systems or where there is no ICT integration. So look out in supermarkets, check their operations. Go to schools, check their operations, from handling stock, then admissions, universities, check out colleges, then submitting results, reporting. So all those are things you can look out for. Microfinance institutions, NGOs, then individuals. Meet an individual. Perhaps an individual needs a website. So meet individuals and try to interact with them. What are they up to? So you can do an undercover investigation. If you don't want to go on ground, you can do an undercover investigation and gain insight on their operations. So, or go on ground like I mentioned. Now, for example, we are not just talking theory here. My intention is always to solve problems. I don't teach theory. So even though theory is what builds us to be what we are, but I like building on real matters. So for example, a company X uses a notebook to record their employee arrival and departure times, plus even taking their names. And unfortunately, some days the book gets lost, the notebook gets lost, or even it is spilled water spills on it, or some other, maybe a juice. So as a computer scientist, go sit down and create an app to help solve that. So you'll keep refining it. Always create a sketch. You'll always be refining it on the go. So a school X struggles to enroll students who are far away from school. How can you help? Go sit down, create a web application. You can even start as low as creating a Google form where students submit their names and their personal details, and then their school enrolls them, they pay, something like that. Just think about how to solve a problem. Do you notice a company with no website, or it has no brand? Please find out where to fix, find a problem to fix. So design for them a website. Now, if a client fails to take your product, don't be frustrated and say this is now the start and the end. Use those projects you have developed on your portfolio to showcase in case you're asked for experience. Now you have something to show. So you can also go ahead to visit freelancing sites like freelancer.com. You can visit Upwork, then other freelancing sites. Get projects which clients have posted for support. So find that project, imagine you're really doing it. So sit down, do it like you're doing it for a client. So after that, put that on your portfolio. So with AI in play, think about how a company Y can get its clients effortlessly. How can it email its clients without always somebody sitting on a PC to say, I have to send messages to the clients. So create a web portal for institutions. Host the portal, manage the portal for the institution. You will be employing yourself. So volunteer for IT support or in other roles. So when you volunteer, it is not a must that you will have to volunteer, but if you realize there is no room you're getting into the industry, you can find volunteering roles. That is where you learn more in case you just feel your knowledge is not sufficient enough. So finally, go out on social media, showcase the projects you've accomplished. So that is how people recognize that so and so actually exists, and this is what he has done. So in this project, I'll try as much as possible to integrate all whatever I've mentioned. So go ahead, finish up here, then we shall meet again. Alright, let me take this opportunity to welcome you back to the C++ section. We are going to solve the same project using this approach of using C++, and this project again will be guided by, we are now going to the section of C++ like I've mentioned, and I'm still your instructor for this section. Now, let us go ahead and see the guiding learning outcomes. The learning outcomes here, we shall learn, and by the end, we should be able to declare and initialize variables using appropriate C++ data types. We shall go ahead to capture user input using cin and display output using cout. Then create, define, and invoke functions, apply arithmetic and logic operators, then implement if statement, do while loops, and switch case statements. And lastly, we shall develop a basic C++ console program. Now, feel free to use Visual Studio Code. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. However, you can also use Dev C++. They will work just the same. So choose one, but the only drawback which I'm going to give you about Dev C++, there's no auto-completion. So, as opposed to Visual Studio Code, remember Visual Studio Code is a rich text editor as opposed to Dev C++. However, it is also a good one because in case you are a beginner who doesn't want to disturb yourself, maybe installing a compiler, then copy the path of the compiler, then paste it to the system variables. Actually, Dev C++ is something you can buy for. You should do your own formatting for the code to be organized like this. So let us look at how this program works. So I'll come to execute, then compile and run. So it will open the terminal window. We shall start interacting with the program. It will also print the output to a CSV file. So come and click continue to proceed. I'll choose the first item, which is maize. Do you want to exit? I don't want to exit. Type X to exit and Y to proceed. So remember, I've chosen maize. I'll enter 300 as the cost price, 400 as the selling price. Then the quantity, I enter 45. So it will have to give me this, but the program still continues. Do you want to exit? I don't want. So I'll enter the cost price, something like this. Enter the selling price, enter the quantity. So do you want to exit? I'll type X. So do you want to proceed with the program? I don't want. I'll press 2 and it will quit. So this is how the console program will work. And if you come to this folder, you realize we have, and if you open it, I'll open it in Excel, you realize this is the data we had just captured. I don't know why it is split, but this is the data we had just captured. I think we first, I don't know, but these ones were already existing. But this is the data we have just captured. We entered 300, 445, 34, something like that. So that is how we shall also create the program and make sure it writes data to a CSV, so that after the users run the program, you have the data where you will refer to. So you can complete this section where we have been doing the overview of the system. Then you'll come back and we start with the first section. Like I had promised earlier, I will explain the concepts, then we apply them in the project. Explain, apply them in the project, so that by the end you have an idea of how to write other programs, not only this. Actually, in case I would just say write this line, it means I'm trying to teach grammar work. However, I'm teaching concepts you can use over and again. Alright, finish up here, then we proceed in the next one. Alright, welcome back. Now, from the basic observation, you realize that the C++ program is quite long. The syntax is a little bit lengthy. We have gone up to close to 400 lines of code, 340. So in case you are not very patient to sit and write, C++ is kinda lengthy. The syntax is kinda lengthy as opposed to Python, as we are going to see. Now, the first thing, we are going to look at some of the guiding outcomes. So we are confident that by the end of this section, we shall be able to create a C++ program for the first time, then define and manipulate variables, then produce formatted output using the cout. We can also look at how do we accept user input. Now, before we kick off, remember we have these questions we have not answered. We should answer these questions before we kick off. Remember, we already have the project in mind, like I displayed it earlier. So what information must we gather for each product before we calculate the profit? If it is maize, what information do we need to gather about it? Perhaps the cost price, the selling price, and the quantity which was sold. So which values are inputs and which values are the outputs? So the inputs may be now the values which are leading us into the calculations. Then how do you explain the profit? Literally, can profit ever be negative? If it is negative, what do we do? How do we flag it? Do we flag it as profit still? Why is quantity sold? Why is quantity sold necessary in this calculation? So if we have only the selling price and the cost price, do we need the quantity anyway? Is the question. If we need it, what is its use? How should the program respond to negative quantities? So in case you have a negative quantity, it means maybe we should automate something and say, please, quantity will never be negative. All right, let us start straight away. Now, I'll come here. I've created a project practice file, something like this. I'll create the project. I'll call it profit calculator, just like this. Don't forget the extension .cpp, C++. So I'll drag this to be the last over here. I hope I've not dragged it badly. Okay, it will be somewhere there. So when you come here, start with the first line, that is hash include. These lines are defined for each. It is hash include, then IO stream. I think you can find IO stream here. IO stream, just like this, and close. So we shall come here and define the main function, which returns a 0. Remember, it is an integer function, int representing integer. So what are we going to look at first? We have looked at how to create the project. We have just created it here from new file. So this is the skeleton of a C++ project. You should have this line. This helps us to manage the input and output streams. That is the input and output of the program. Then this is the main body of the program. So let us go ahead to also look at how do we display text in the console or the terminal. So to display text, we use cout like this. And then we have to put what we want to display. Actually, after writing cout, we prefix it or we precede it with we proceed it with a pair of left angle brackets, then open quotes and type what you want to display. I want to display something like hello world, like this. So at the end, you prefix it with, again, a pair of left angle brackets, put the end line. End line simply signifies that you're closing this line. Now, you see errors. Errors are indicating that we are missing the standard prefix here. As well, we are missing the standard prefix here. So we write the word standard, std, followed by a pair of colons. So if we leave it like this and we run, we must see something. I'll go to run C++ code. I'll go click on run code. So when I run code, I'll see this output, hello world, in the terminal. Okay, let us proceed to the next section. Now, in case I want to print another line, let me just copy this line. Remember, copying and pasting is not a crime. Even though you are an expert, copying and pasting is very fine. Let me put here my name. So whenever I'm writing, I should always write these lines like this. std, then full colon. std standing for standard, then output, cout. So to avoid this std, I'll come and pass a line here, and I say using namespace std. then end it with a semicolon. So I didn't explain this. Whenever you're ending any line of code or statement in C++, always end it with a semicolon, just like the way you may end an English statement or sentence with a full stop or a question mark. Unlike Python, where you don't need a semicolon. So that is how you do use the standard output. So after using the standard std here, you can now remove these stds just like this. Like this, I said std stands for standard, just like this. So this is how you can write output. So how do you accept input? Now I didn't explain the end line. End L stands for end line, such that in case there's no end line here, let us say there's no end line here, I just closed like this. This statement will be attached this way, unlike Python where it will not attach itself. So if you run this, it will say hello world, then it will attach the other statement. But if we leave it the way it was, just like this, I don't know, it wasn't like that, just like this, and we run, we shall realize it is not attached. Everything is displayed on its own line. So you may decide to use the end L, or you may decide to use open quotes, pair of quotes like that, then \n. Just the same here, open quotes like this, then \n. That one works just the same, just like that. So let us proceed. How do you accept user input? Now to accept user input, we use cin. An example, we shall display a message and say, what is your name? So for us to accept the input, we shall call it cin. Then instead of the left angle brackets, we use the right angle brackets. And then we pass here the variable, my name, just like this. Now this variable has not been declared. I have to come and declare this variable. I may declare it here or somewhere else. I have to declare this variable because I'm expecting somebody to enter a name which is a string. I'm entering a string, call it a string, then my name just like this, end it with a colon, semicolon. So you can use it here. So we can now display the output and say cout. Then my name, display the variable, the result from the variable, my name. Always don't forget to end the line. So if you come to and run, it will ask for your name. So what is your name? I'll type my name. And it will say the name is that. They have just printed the name, only the name. So whenever you're declaring a variable in C++, always start with the return type, that is a string, the my variable, my input, I wanted a string. What if I want an integer, which is age? I'll say my age as the variable. So you start with the integer as the return type, followed by the variable name. Okay, so I'll come here. Actually, you can even assign the variable name here and say 12. Then you can come down here and cout or print out my name. My age, sorry, my age. Then I'll end line just like this. So if I try to print, I'll print my age, sorry. It will ask for the name, I'll enter the name. Then it will print the age. Remember, I assigned the age here. So you can create a variable using the keyword from the return type, then a variable name, then assign a value immediately. Or you can decide to ask this value from an input. So I can remove this. I can remove this. Then I ask from the user and I say, what is your age? Cout, I ask the user, what is your age? Just like this. Don't forget to end line such that strings are not attached. The output is not attached. So I'll see in my age. So I'll go out to see out. To see out. I shall not put in quotes. I'll see out my age. So I'm asking the user. Previously I had assigned the value 12. Let me ask the user. Whatever the value the user will give me is what I'll display here. End line. Just like this. So come and run this. So it will ask for the name. I'll enter my name. It will ask for what is your age. I'll enter the age. It was 12. So it will give me the name. What is your name? I don't know. What is your age? The age. Wait a minute. There's something here. This angle bracket, not necessary. So what is your age? I entered the name to display the name. What is your age? I entered the age, display the age. So that is how you would accept input from the user and also display the data. Now, in case I have, I think that one maybe I may explain it in the next concept. Now, this one will drive us to how do we now work with operators. Remember, we want to now go and introduce the whole value, the whole data, where we are going to ask users to enter the cost price, enter the selling price, then we can proceed. So go ahead to practice this section and we meet in the next one. Alright, welcome back. Now we are going to I think I was writing in my final project where I was doing this practice. Let me remove all this. Let me put the practice. The practice was supposed to be done from here. So after we have now found out exactly what we are supposed to do, how to accept values, how to display values, how to declare variables, you first start with the return type, then follow it with the variable name. You can assign it immediately, or you can go ahead and ask input from the users, then capture the input. So let us now go ahead and utilize this. So we are going to create the maze calculations. Just call it maze calc. So for the maze, we are now going back to our questions. What information do we need to collect? So I think you must have answered all those questions because I displayed this earlier. So which values are inputs? How do we calculate the profit? How do you describe the profit? So in this section, we are going to simply harmonize everything here. So how do we calculate the profit? Then how do we calculate the overall percentage profit? Then actually the specific guiding principle here will be applying arithmetic operators in a Python program. So because we are going to be computing a few things here and there. So come back to your program. So in your program, remember previously we were declaring our variables here. So we are going to come up here and we answer this question, this one here. Which information do we need to collect about each and every product? So we are going to declare a variable here. So to put comments, you use 2 forward slashes like that. So a comment, we shall declare variables. So these variables are from the question we're asking, which information are we supposed to collect? We shall collect information about the cost price. So why am I declaring them from here? When I'm declaring them from here, they will be accessed only locally in this function. However, I want them to be accessed elsewhere. So you declare them be after the hash IO stream statement. So I'll declare the first variable Actually, let me indent this. I'll declare the first variable float, which is cost price, a float of cost price. I'll also declare another float of selling price. I'll declare another variable float of quantity sold. Quantity sold, don't forget the last semicolon. Declare another variable float of profit. Actually, total cost price. I'll declare another variable float of total selling price. Then I'll declare another variable float. Declare a float of profit. I'll declare I don't know, percentage can also be a decimal. I'll declare a float of percent. You can put an integer if you wish. Percentage profit, just like this. So whenever you're doing the variable names, make sure they're descriptive enough. Total cost price, total selling price. So you shall have something like this. So I'll come here and I display a message and ask the user for the maize cost price. I'll say please enter the maize cost price. Okay. Don't forget to end the line with end L. So after asking for the maize cost price, I'll cin. Remember, whenever you write cin, use the right angle bracket. This is the left opening angle bracket. This is the closing. So, and you accept the cost price. Remember, we have passed the cost price here. Accept cost price. So after that, we shall also ask the user for the selling price. Shall say please enter the selling price. Okay. Shall also end this line just like this. So we shall cin or accept the selling price just like this. So we shall also go and ask the user for the quantity sold. Shall say please enter the quantity sold. Come and end this line just like this. So accept after asking the user. So you should now accept what the user will enter. Accept through the variable quantity sold. So that is how we would prompt the user. So if we can display this, come and run code. So it will ask what is the cost price, the maize cost price, enter 200 selling price, then enter the quantity sold, and the program breaks from there. So we want to go ahead and now do the computations. That's when we are going to introduce the use of operators. So I'm going to do a quick one here. I will declare a variable x and I will assign it a value. I'll assign it a value 2. I'll declare another variable of the integer type, another variable y, and I'll assign it a value 3. Then I'll declare a variable z. I'll just declare it like that because I want to use it in the calculation. So I can get z is equals to x plus y. I can get z is equals to x minus y. I can get z or z is is equals to x times y. I can also get z, and get z is equals to x divided by y. So here we use the addition operator, we use the subtraction operator, we use the asterisk for the multiplication, we use the backslash for the division. So I don't know where is the error here. I hope this is not the error. Anyway, maybe due to repetition. Let me comment this, comment this, comment this. So we can come and print, not print, we are seeing out, we shall come and see out the value of z, then end line. So when we print, it must return the addition of z plus y. I don't know, it is indicating the sum error. Let me check. We declare this variable, then we said, let me check again. Let me wrap this. I think I'm trying to return the variable z. I don't know why it is indicating, before even I proceed, it is indicating this line is underlined. Let me pause. I check the error and then we come back and proceed. Okay, the error was very easy to see, but I didn't quickly see it. So after writing this, I didn't close this with the same colon. So that one solves the whole mess. So run the code to say the value is 5. So if I change this to division and run this, so if it is division, it is 2 and 3. You cannot divide 2 by 3. So this is how you can use the operators, by simply placing it in between the variables you want to compute. So here we are going to start by computing the total cost price. So we shall get the total cost price from getting the cost price times the quantity sold, and we shall see out total cost price, and we shall end the line like this. We shall also go ahead, I think I have not closed here also. We shall also go ahead to also get the total selling price, which will be got from the selling price times the quantity sold. We shall also go ahead and display the total selling price, just like this, in the line. I didn't end this one, so here you should be very careful to always close or end the line. So we shall also go ahead and compute the profit. Remember, profit is simply the difference between the total selling price minus the total cost price. So if you sold something you bought it at 200, you sold it at 400, it means the profit, you get what you sold it at minus what you bought it at. So we shall get the total selling price minus the total cost price. We shall also see out the profit. We shall see out the profit, and we shall end this line just like this. So again, I've forgotten to close here. The good thing, it will always indicate for you the error. So let us compute. You can add comments, but for me, instead of comments, I'm adding spaces for readability. So I will also add percentage profit. Just call it percentage profit. I think I had written it here already. Just copy it and paste it here to avoid writing errors. Percentage profit To compute a percentage profit, you should get the profit over the total cost price times 100. So you'll get the profit over the total cost price times 100. Shall close this line, and we shall see out the percentage profit and end that line just like this. So that is how you do all those computations. Now, in case you want to add other fancy statements, remember we started our calculation from here: total cost price, total selling price, total profit, and percentage profit. So what do? I'll come within here and add another double angle brackets, the left ones, and I'll add here a comment inside here, and I say the total. Remember, things should be seen where total cost price is equals to. So these two operators, the left angle brackets, help us to concatenate. So you can concatenate this to the result of this calculation. So I'll do the same for the total selling price. I'll come inside here and I'll create the quotes and I'll say the total selling price equals. So we shall do the same for this. We shall create the angle brackets like that, come inside and say the profit equals. Shall go for the percentage, shall do the same and say percentage profit equals. So you can also add the currency in front of this value. You can do like this, then put the currency. I'll put USD. So I'll copy this and I paste it for the rest of the other values. I'll paste it for the total selling price, just in front here. I'll paste it for the profit, just like this. And then this one I'll not paste, I'll paste it, but I'll format this into percentage symbol. So we have concatenated this text to this variable result from the computation, then to this other text, then we ended the line. Let us run this. So to run this, we shall be asked for the cost price, shall enter 200, selling price 300, then the quantity 34, and we shall get the result of the total cost price, total selling price, the profit, and the percentage profit. Remember, if you sold at you bought at 200 and sold at 300, I don't know whether the profit is 100%. Let us check, because the profit is 68. Anyway, it might be true. So this is how you would accomplish this. So go ahead, finish up from here, then come back and proceed in the next one. Alright, welcome back. Now in this lecture we are going to be guided by these learning outcomes, applying logical statements. By the end of this section, you should be able to apply the logical statements like the use of the if, use of the switch case, then the control structure rules like use of the for, while, and the do while loops. So the question here is, how do you group maize, beans, and millet data logically? We are going to solve this. So first, let us first of all start with how can you use the if. So from the if, we shall proceed to the switch case, then we shall finalize with the loops, then we shall go and apply the knowledge. So we shall come here and try an example. I'll declare a variable x is equal to, I like x because even people in mathematics like it. I'll declare a variable x and I assign it a value 34. So I'll come and ask some if questions here. So how do you use the if? So to use the if, you use the word if, then open a pair of parentheses, then open curly brackets. You write your statements here. Inside here, you write the logical test you want to test. Then inside here, you write what you want to display when this condition is true. So I'll come and say if x is less than 10, okay, if x is less than 10, what do I want to display? I'll say cout, the value is small. So value is small, I'll end this line like this. So we can proceed. In case the value of x is not less than 10, remember we have a condition here to meet. So else if, in Python you wrote it like this, in C++ you write it like else if, just like this. So else if, write our condition within. So else if x is less than 20, what shall we say? It is a median value. It is a median value. So we shall come and also end the line here like this. So we proceed. I hope I have not captured this wrongly. It is else if with a space. Yes. So I'll also come and say else if, put the condition just like this. So else if x is equals to 30, shall display message and say cout x is 30. So shall end this line just like this. So in case nothing is true, the last line which checks for anything which is possible is the else. So else shall cout, and we say the value is really large. So just like this, and we end the line. So if you run this program, you will check is x less than 10, x is 34. It should also pass this. It will also pass this. It may display this. Let us see. Shall run this code. So we run into an error. Is really large. I don't know where I've written a mess. The value is really large. I should check through again. I don't know where I've messed it up. Okay, let me pause and I check through and then I come back and we proceed. So if you try to run this, I've checked and there is no error. If you try to run this code, to run and say the value is really large. So I think that is the last line, the value is really large. Because first check the first condition, x is not less than or equals to 30, and x is not less than 20, and x is not less than 10. So this is how you would use the if function or if logical statement in C++. Now instead of using all those ifs, what if you decide to use the switch case statement? Now this one is very interesting. How do you use the switch case? So in a case where I want to test whether somebody actually like the choices, I want to check choices. I'll say int choices. So I want to say cout and display choices. Say cout and I display choices 1, is yes, then 2 is no. Then I'll end the line like this. So I'll go for cin users to give me choices. I type choices, users to give me choices. Okay. So in a case like this, the choices I will get, I can now use, somebody can select 1, somebody can select 2. Let us try to display this. Oh, what did I run? Let me clear the terminal. Let me click on run code. I don't know where is the error. I don't see any error. Let me run the code again. Okay, I have something like this, then I should put the choice here, 1 or 2. So when the user wants to choose any of those choices, we can try to say if, then open it and say if choice is equals to 1, if choices is equals to 1, then we shall do something. However, this one is not very effective. That's why we're introducing the match case, the switch case statement. I'm bringing Python here. The switch case statement. So we shall say switch open pair of parentheses, then pass what you want to switch against matching cases. Then open a pair of curly brackets like that and press enter. So we are going to start with the first case. If it is case 1, case that somebody has entered 1 or chosen 1, what do? We shall say cout and say you chose 1. We shall end a line like this, then we shall break. What about if a user chose 2? Shall display message and say you chose 2. Then we shall end the line like this, and we shall also break. Remember, indentation is very important in case you want your code to be organized. So I'll indent it like that. So lastly, we have the default case. Remember, the 2 options I've given are exhausted. What if somebody doesn't enter any of these cases? So we have the default case. So the default, we shall say cout, you have not, you have chosen, you have entered an invalid choice, just like this. So you don't include the break. Let us try to run this. Run code, it will ask choice 1, and I'll enter 1, and you've chosen 1. I think I was supposed to write you've chosen like this, and you have also chosen, I don't know that is the spelling. Let me just correct it. So if I run again, it will give me the menu 2 to say you have chosen 2. I'll clear this. I run again and I enter something else. Let me enter like W to say you have entered an invalid choice. So this is always the default to return when none of these matching cases have been captured by the user while maybe trying to capture input. So this is how to use the match case statement. The switch case statement. Let us go ahead to introduce loops. So a loop helps us to run over and again a piece of code until a given result or a given condition is met. So let us start with the for loop. Let's start with the for loop. So the for loop takes up a syntax. You write the word for, open brackets, then open pair of curly brackets and press enter. So inside here is where you write your statement to execute when what we shall write here is true. So we shall define an initial condition if, int I is equals to 0 as the initial condition, then put a semicolon, and then we shall test. This is the initial condition. So the condition we shall test that I is less than 5, then put a colon, then increment I plus plus. So what are we saying? If I is less than 5, as long as I is less than 5, we shall print or show what is here. Show I. Just like this. Show I and line say that whatever will come. So in the first case, I is 0. So it will come and say, okay, this is the initial condition. It will go increment I is. It will increment on top of I is 0. It will increment. I will become 1, 2, 3. In case it reaches when I is less than 5, it will stop. So let us try to run this. It will say it starts with 0. Remember the initial condition is 0. Then it goes, adds 1. So it checks if I is less than 5, it stops. So this is how you can implement the use of the for loop. Let us look at the use of the while loop. While loop. So the use of the while loop is also very easy to write. The first thing we state is the starting condition. Here I'll define a variable of the integer data type and I will assign it a value 0. So this will work like the initial condition. So I'll come and write and say while. So while the x value is less than 20, I write less than 20. While the x, not less than, because I want to terminate it at some point. While the x value is greater than 20. So whenever you're writing while, open, close parentheses, open, close the pair of curly brackets, and you come and write inside and also write inside this parentheses. So while x is greater than 20, print, shall not print, shall display using cout, print x or cout x, end line. Then increment x by 1. Increment x by 1. So it will print this. At first it will print 0, proceed. When it realizes that x is becoming greater than 20, it stops. So let us execute this and see what happens. So I hope it has not just paused. Let me first clear this so that it is visible. So I think everything is correct. I've incremented x. Then I've said, okay, let me run it again. Not I'll pause, and then I look through what is happening. Let me pause, then I check through what is happening, then I come and back and proceed. So the condition I had set it wrongly. Instead of I had pressed greater than, so it is actually checking. If it is greater than, then it will not stop. Actually, it will not even run like the other refused. So we should say while x is less than 20. So immediately it reaches 20, it will stop. So while x is less than or equals to 20, we shall do this. So we shall come and increment. The first time x is 0. So the next time x is incremented to 1. Next time x is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 15, 18, 19. So immediately it reaches 20. We were saying if it is less than 20, print or display. So immediately it reaches 19, it stops. Let us try by changing x is less than 20. It brings something here. Let me first clear the terminal again. Let me run the code. Don't know what is happening. So let me run this code again. Run Python code. Okay. Run C++ code. It will display these values 1, 0 to 19. So that is how you would use the while loop. So in a case where you can set the condition, allow the things to move, increment, and break when this condition is met. Use the while loop. Let us look at the use of the do while loop. Look at the use of do while loop. So to use the do while loop, we also do the first thing is set an initial condition. Shall set x is equal to 0, the initial condition. So shall come and do, then shall come this way down here and say while we shall specify a condition. So come and define the initial condition, come and say do, open curly brackets. So what shall we do? Shall do something inside here. Do shall cout x and line. So increment x, just like this. So do while x is less than 10. So it will come increment x is 0 while x is less than 10. If it is still less than 10, it will proceed 1, 2, come and increment to 2, increment to 3, and immediately it gets, when it is less than 10, it will print always when it is less than 10. When it reaches 10, it will stop. So try to run this, and you will see starting from 0 to 9, and it stops. So this brings us to the end of this section, where we have looked at the use of the if function or the if logical statement, replaced it with the use of the switch case, and finally we have looked at the use of the for loop, while loop, and do while loop. And we shall now see how can we use this in our program to control the flow control structure, or to control the flow structure. Go ahead, practice in this section, and let us meet in the next one. Welcome back. Let us start with the lecture 4. And in lecture 4, we are going to be guided by this learning outcome, where we are saying by the end of this lecture, you should be able to design and implement functions to modularize code. So modularizing is simply organizing your code so that it is easily readable and it has a good structure. So some of the questions we shall pose here are, why might a function be useful in this program? Like we are going to see, what should the function return? Should the function return a profit, percentage, or both? So if it is to return any, which data type or return type will you specify? Alright, let us start straight away. Now, let us go to the project practice file and we'll do some practice from here about a function. Now, when you're writing a function, some people may write it over here, just above here, whereas it is highly recommended you write your function logic here, you pass the function here, and then call it in the main body of the program. So I'm going to write a function down here, then I'll call it over here, then I'll have to pass it over here, then I'll have to call it from here. So I'm going to create a function of the integer return type that adds numbers. So when you create a function, you specify the return type. It can be an integer like this, int, it can be a float, it can be a double, it can be a void. We shall see when you use a void, like we are going to see. Then you specify the return type, specify the function name, open parentheses, then outside the parentheses, open a pair of curly brackets, and press enter. We shall write the function logic inside here. So here I'm going to pass the variables because I wanted to add two numbers x. X will be an integer, y will be an integer, and z will also be an integer. So what am I doing? You pass the variables or the parameters within the parentheses here. The parameters are passed alongside their return type. So we shall come back and say z is equals to x plus y, and we shall return z. So we have not declared these variables x, y, and z. I'll come here and I will define the variables x, define y, and define z. So you can do it like this, or just like this. You can declare the variables like this, or you can declare them just in one line, y and z, then a semicolon. So after declaring them like, after writing the function down here like this, come and rewrite this very function, and just copy the whole of this and paste it over here. So we shall call it over here such that it is accessed by the main function. Don't forget to include the return type. It was an integer. So I'll come and now call it in the main body of my program. So I'll say call the function. So I'll assign it to a variable results is equals to my function. I named it my function, which I named add numbers, just like this. Don't forget to pass. Actually, I have not defined even the results. I can also put a comma, then say results, so that it is also identified. So I'll come back and see out results. Sorry, when you call it over here, you should call it with the parameters. I'll call it with parameters 2, 3. I think that is it. And then I'll come over here and I'll say results. I'll print results, and I'll say end line, just like this. It is highlighting the result. Actually, I've said the results here, while here it is the result. It is results. So at the end here, it is also highlighting Z. I think it must take 2. Let me try to remove 1. Yes, like this. Yes, like this. Okay, I hope that it will behave, because Z is simply going to return something. Let us try to run this. Okay, it will say Z I passed 2, so I passed XY, I passed X2, and Y3. So the result is 5. So we assign this results variable to the function, then pass two values which represent the function. Then we shall have to call the function and print the result. So that is how a function works. Some people may decide to write the whole of it, the whole of this, may decide to write it here, just like this. So it also just works fine. But for organization, you can call it from here. You can simply pass it here, and then the function logic will be written down here. Actually, this will also work very fine. However, you don't have to write it above here the way I'd written it previously, like this. So this is how you can use a function in C++. Now we are going to implement the same thing here. We shall come down here and introduce a function. Introduce function. So this function, we shall call it, this one will be of the void return type. We shall call it maze function. So whenever you're using the void return type, it means you don't want to return anything. So we shall call the maze function of the void return type. So inside here, remember I was computing this for maze. I'll come and cut this out, just like this. Cut it out, then I paste it within this function, just like this. So I'll come over here and I call the function with its return type void maze function, just like this. However, I didn't pass anything as parameters. So when you're writing it over here, you also don't pass anything. So when I come back inside here, I'll just call my maze function from here. I'll call maze function. Just paste it over here, just like that. So when the main function, the main body of my program runs, to go and find this function, to go and execute it. So that is how you would write a function. And now we are going to create more 3 functions for the rest of these other products. So but before we create that, we are going to use the if statement to define this profit. Remember, we posed the question and asked, profit can be a negative. But if it's a negative, what do we say? What do we comment about it? So when profit is a negative, we are going to come back. We are going to go down here and say, use if function, if logical statement to comment on function on profit. To comment on profit, we shall say if. You write if, open parentheses, then open curly brackets. So within the parentheses, we shall put our logic. We shall say if profit is less than or equals to 0, we shall print something, and we say, we shall see out, and we say, you did not make any profit. Okay, shall end line, just like this. So you did not make any profit. else if, always first write like this, then you come inside the parentheses and write the condition, else if profit is greater than 0, shall display message, and we say cout, your business is doing well. Just like this, shall end line. So this is how profit would be determined and be commented about. So this is in the maze function. We shall go ahead to do the same for the 3 other products. Shall copy this code, shall paste it over here. That is once, this is for beans, and this is for millet. Shall come here and we say millet function. Shall come over here and say beans function. Then we shall come over here, and whenever there is maize, shall change it to beans. So I think I only had that. Please enter the beans selling price. Please enter the beans quantity sold. I think I don't have anywhere else. Shall come here and we change this to millet. So we shall again ask questions like enter the millet selling price, enter the millet quantity. I think that is it. So we shall come over here and call these 3 functions still. I'll just copy this and duplicate. I should indent this inside at least by 1 line. Shall call this the beans function. Then lastly, shall call this the millet function. Just like this. So when we come down here, we shall now call the 3 functions. But now we cannot execute both of them at once. Maybe execute the maize and then go to the beans. So what we shall do, we shall create a decision here using the if. So we shall cout and put a simple description here, and we say, actually we shall accept user input. Shall say choose an option from the list below. So here we shall end the line. Here we are going to make sure the user chooses from the list. So the list will have, the list we shall have maize. Option 1 will be maize \n. Option 2, I think I'll put some space. No, option 2 will be beans \n. Option 3 will be millet. Just like this. And we shall come and end line. So we shall create a variable. We shall come back here and create a variable, int variable, because I'm going to accept integers 1, 2, 3. So we shall create a variable of the integer return type, and I will say, so I don't have a variable user choice, unless if I have it, but if I don't have it, call it user choice. So I'll copy this variable and I'm going to use it here, and I'll say cin user choice. So we shall come back and make decision and say if user choice is equals to 1, we shall call the maize function. shall call maze function just like this, and then we shall go ahead and say else if the user choice is equals to 2, we shall call the beans function because 2 is beans, just like this. Then we shall also have else if the user choice is equals to 3, we shall call the millet function just like this. So a default case, in case somebody has not captured anything, what should we display else? We shall display message and say display message, and we say you did not enter a valid input. So we shall end this like this. So we have called these functions here. To call a function, you write its function name followed by the parentheses, then a semicolon. So let us go and test this. Run code. So we shall drag this window up slightly. So the first one, it has gone to maze. I hope we have made some changes, because it was supposed to display for us the menu, and then we would choose. I hope it is perfectly configured. Anyway, let me try the maze. Enter 300, enter 500, enter 40. So it will now display the menu here. Actually, in the menu, I didn't use the \n here. Just like, okay, the maze function was still present here. That's why it was doing such. Let me Control C to terminate that. Let me run again. So I'll start with the menu here. In the menu, I've again done something crazy here. \n, like this. So I'll terminate this again. So testing is very important, so that you know the progress. I think choose an option from the list below. Testing is important, so that you see the progress. So we have started with maze 300, then the selling price 400, then the quantity have 56. So I'll get back the total selling price, total cost price, then the profit, percentage profit, then the business is doing well as the comment. So this is how you would use a function to help organize this maze, the beans categories. So we shall pause from here, then we shall resume back in lecture 5, where we shall look at the use of the switch case statement to replace what we have just used, the if function here. Sorry, the if logical statement. So instead of using several if statements like this, we can replace them with the switch case statement. Alright, welcome back to lecture 5, where we are going to look at the use of the switch case statement. Now we are saying by the end of this section, you should be able to apply the switch case statement in a program, then create, define, and invoke. Invoke is simply calling what we have been doing, and call functions. Now let us dive in straight away. Now, I had mentioned earlier in the previous lecture that if you don't want to use the if statement or the if logical function or the if logical statement, you can decide to replace it with the switch case statement. Let us first see the use of the switch from somewhere here. Then we shall use it again somewhere. So for us to use the switch, we shall have an instance where we shall be accepting user input. So I will define an integer variable here called user choice, like we had called it earlier. So the user choice, I'll come here and ask a question about the user choice, exactly the way we have done it the other side. Enter a choice from the list below. The list below like this. Then we shall end this line. So we shall accept input from the user choice. So just a point of concern, never always forget to declare variables. So you state the return type, you can declare it within here, but this you would have declared it locally. But if you want to use it maybe in another function, if you create another function down here, then it's better to declare it here once, then you can use it anywhere across the program globally. So I'll come and now make decision. So I'll create a menu which the user will choose from. So I'll say cout like this. So I'll create a menu where I'll say one is, like we had written earlier, one is maize, then \n, 2 is beans, \n, 3 is millet, just like that. We shall end this line. So the cin will now ask for the user input, just like this. So when the user has entered the input, we shall now use the switch to make decision. Previously we used the if. So to use the switch, we write and say switch. So what are we going to switch? We are going to switch different user choices against different matching cases. So what the user will enter, we shall now check it versus different choices, different cases, which we are going to capture here. So case 1, it means the user has chosen 1. If it was A, then we would write and say case A, because A is a character or text. We put it in quotes like this, but it would be better if you put it in single quotes like that. Then we shall come and put what we want to display. The user chose A. If it is an integer, actually if this was A, that's what I'm meaning. If this was A like this, so you would also come here and also say case A. That's the first case. But since it is an integer, you shall just write and say case 1. That is case if a user chose or entered 1. So if the user entered 1, shall say cout, shall display message and say you have chosen maize, just like this. Shall end line, and we shall break. So case 2, case a user has entered 2, shall also cout, and we shall say you have chosen 2. 2 is beans. Then we shall end line, just like this. Then we shall also break. Then case the user has entered 3, shall also cout and say you have chosen millet. shall also end this line just like this. Then we shall also break. So these are the three choices we have given the user: 1, 2, 3. What if the user does something else? This one we represent it by the default case. So the default case is when the user has not entered anything. Shall also say cout, you have entered an invalid input, and we shall end line. So after this, we shall now run the program and we see how it will behave. So when you come and run code, so you have the display here. So if we chose 2, it will say you have chosen beans. And if we chose 3, to say you've chosen millet. Then if you run it again, then you entered something else, to say you have entered an invalid input. So you can use the switch case to replace it with the use of the logical if statement. So you can just transfer this and apply it here, just in case you're not comfortable using the multiple if statements. So this brings us to the end of this section. Perhaps we shall apply this in the next coming lectures as well. So go ahead, finish up here, then we meet in the next lecture. Alright, welcome back. Now we are going to look at the structure in C++. Now we are going to build on this concept such that we shall apply it in the next session. Now we are saying by the end of this section, you should be able to apply structures in a program to handle data from several data types. So one of the advantages of a structure, it helps us to group related variables of different data types into a single unit under one unique name. So one of the other advantages, some of the other advantages is it increases code readability, as we are going to see. And then it helps us to create custom data types. So by creating a structure, you're simply creating a user-defined data type. Then it helps us to organize related data like I had mentioned earlier. Now here we shall pose a question: how could this program be extended to support more products? So remember, we have only defined maize, beans, and millet. Now what if the store guy brings in another product? That is, maybe he has brought in cowpeas or any type of peas. How do we need to explicitly come and again hard code everything? So that is one of the questions on your table. How would this be extended to accommodate more products dynamically? Perhaps maybe you just define one function and you allow it to accept any product without specifying it as beans or maize, like that it will just ask for the cost price without the beans. So maybe something like that. You can think around that line to implement something which will help us to accommodate other products. So come to this practice files where we are going to practice. We shall apply this concept. But first, let us first practice this from here. Now to define our structure, we define it from just above here, like the way I was defining I was declaring variables. So to define a structure, we start with the struct keyword, then followed by the structure name. So the structure name, I'll call this person. So after defining the structure name, shall also open parentheses and press enter. So within the parentheses, we are going to describe or now define the data types. So I will have to accept a string of username, then put a colon at the end, semicolon at the end. Then I'll also accept an integer of user age. So I've organized these two about a person. Remember we said it helps us to group related variables of different data types. So at a point where we have our structure name as a person, we know part of the attributes of a person is you'll ask for the name, you'll ask for the user age. So you will define it like this. If you're defining about product, say for example, you're defining about, let's define another structure here, and I will call it PC, just like this. So in this PC, I can define the string. The string will be brand name. Then I will define another string, which is call this RAM capacity like this. So that is how you do play with the structures. So you define about a certain, should I say, entity, and then you'll have to describe data types about it, or the attributes related. That's why we said it's all about related data. Now after creating our structure like that, we shall now need to assign values to that attribute, to that structure. So we shall come in the main body of the program, and we shall now do what we call, we shall create a variable of the person type. Remember, this is now a data type. We shall now create a variable of the person type, and we shall call it P. Or we can call it anything, or can say person. Shall call this variable person. Then we shall call the first, maybe I want different persons. This will be person 1, just like this. So I can say person 1 dot name dot username. I can assign the username here. I will assign my own name like this. I can also say person 1 dot user age is equals to, I'll put my age, it is not in quotes, I'll put my age like this. So I'll now come and now display the result of that person. So I'll come and say cout, then I'll say person 1 dot user name, and I'll end line like this, and I end the line like that. So I realize there is an error here. Let me double check. So the error I'm seeing here, I need to close here with the semicolon, just like that. So come and run this. So you shall realize it is giving us the name, because I have printed out person1.username. So I can also print out or display person1 dot user age, and I'll end line like this. So we can simply organize the data this way. So I can also define another structure here, and I say, sorry, I define another variable of the structure type, and I say person2, and I'll come and assign person2. I just copy this, and assign person2 other names. Person2 other names, I'll assign this as Brian. And I'll assign the age as 34. So I'll also come and display Brian. Brian is age, and username. Brian is person2. So I've defined Brian in a different person, and I've assigned him the variables. So you can assign it directly. You can display it directly like this. So by so doing, you'll be organizing data with ease. So I'll have Emma's data, I have Emmanuel's data, I'll have Brian's data. So structures help us to organize related data or related variables within a program. So we are going to apply this very concept in the next coming session. So go ahead, finish up here, and then let us meet in the next one. Alright, welcome back. Now let us look at the use of a vector. Now a vector will also be used to store data, and we shall use it also in the next lecture. That's why I'm introducing it before we reach there. Now a vector is also used to store data. Now it stores, actually we shall create a vector which stores numbers which have been entered by the user. Now whenever you want to store some data in memory, a vector is very helpful. Now we are saying by the end of this section, you should be able to apply a vector in a program to store data. We shall come and again write our vector here. I'll remove this. So to create a vector, the first thing we start with is the keyword vector. But before that, we have to import the vector module here. I'll say include, and then vector, like this. So you'll be able to use the vector here. So you'll have to write the vector keyword followed by the type of the category or the return type you want to capture. I want to capture numbers, so those are integers, then the name of the vector or vector name, just like this. So you specify you write the vector keyword followed by the type of character you want to store in the vector, lastly the vector name. So for us to now use this, we shall come and now apply it and say add numbers. Remember we are specifying integers to the vector. So our vector, we gave it a name, vector name, just like this. Vector name dot pushback. We are simply writing a number to the vector. Pushback, I'll write the first number, which is 10. I'll also write another number to the vector. Vector name dot pushback. I'll write 5 to the vector. So I can go ahead and now display the results from the vector. So I'll display the results from the vector by simply saying, actually, for me to loop through the whole vector, remember it has now 2 values. So for me to display all these values at once, it is better I put them in a loop. So to use them in a loop, I will use the for loop, which I will say for. I'll open parentheses like that, then open curly brackets. So within the parentheses, I'm going to define the return type for int. So within the vector name, actually it is better I would have called these numbers. So if I call it numbers, it will be easier for me to assign a simple variable name here. So this is numbers, this is the vector name. So you say the vector name dot pushback to add a value to the vector. So I'll say int, I'll call it number in numbers. Number, actually we are saying for number in numbers. So however, we shall not use the in like the way if you have interacted with Python where you use in. Here we shall use the colon to mean in numbers. For for number in numbers. So we are declaring this tentative variable to handle each single number within the numbers vector, just like that. So we shall come and see out number, print that single number within the numbers, then we shall end line. So if we come and display this, we shall have the result as 10 and 5. If we add another number to this vector, I'll just copy this and I add another number as 6. So I will not rewrite this section again because it is number in numbers and the numbers are here. So it will again go and get a new number added and it will print it out to the terminal. Sorry, I hope I have not missed something here. Let me come and run again. Okay, the new number I've added is 6. So that is how it is simple to use a vector. We are going to apply this very vector in another session where we are going to use it to store data. Remember, our program is now using raw data. We want to store data into a CSV. So we shall first store it in a vector, then later display it in a CSV file. So go ahead, finish up here, then meet me in the next session and we proceed. Alright, welcome back. Now let us proceed now to combine the ideas we have just covered in the first 2 lectures and we apply them here. Now I want the data from here to be sent to a CSV file. Now what are we going to do? We are going to come and define a structure up here. The structure is going to carry these variables: the cost price, the selling price, the total cost price. So I'm going to come down here. Let me just define it just before this. I'm going to come down here and define a structure. Remember we said a structure is a custom data type. So I'm going to define a structure and I call it cells. So this structure cells is going to take up the following data types. Now the first will be the cost price, then we shall follow the selling price, shall follow it by the quantity sold, etc. So just inside here, we shall now come and find the variables. But remember, I'd written these variables already: cost price, selling price, quantity, total, all these ones here. So I'll come and copy this. Remember, this was just an added one. I'll come and copy this, and I'll come and paste within my structure here. Just like this. I'll indent it inside for readability. So yeah, that is it. That's how it will look. So this is my structure. So I'll come within the first function up here, and I'll create a vector. From up here, I'll create a vector, and the vector, like we had mentioned earlier, we write the keyword vector followed by the return type, then the vector name. So I'm going to create a vector. Remember, I've not passed the vector module up here, I'll say hash include, then vector, just like that. So I'll come and use the vector now here. I'll create a vector called, anyway, I'll not describe it from there. I'll say vector, and then the return type I'm going to specify cells. Remember, we say this is now a custom data type. The return type will be cells. Then the vector name, I'll call this maize data, just like this. So I'm going to get the maize data. I now write it to a file. So for me to write it to a file, to a CSV file, I'll also need another library here. So I'll need the hash include f stream. So this one helps us to work with the files, to read and write files. So I'll come here and now define that. So I'll come and say of stream to write the file. Then I'll describe it as file. So within here, I'll return the file name. I'll return the file name as I'll call it maize. .csv. Then after that, I'm going to make sure my file is going to do something very special. So what is it going to do? I'm going to make sure I specify something such that whenever new data is added, it is appended to the end of the file. So that is when I'll use input output like this, then 2 colons, then space, then up. So this one helps us to append the new data at the end of the file. So whenever you add new data, it is appended straight away to the end of the file. So we shall go ahead and now write the headers of the file. That is the CSV file. So we shall write the file headers. We write the file headers. So for us to write the file headers, we shall create what we call, anyway, let me first write it, then we shall now go to that problem in case it occurs. We shall now write the header files, the file headers. That is in the way you see in Excel, the top headings of a column. So the first header we shall write here will be the cost price. The cost price will be the first header. I'll write another header. I'll call it, I think I should just give them the name the way they are. Call it the selling price. Like that. Then I'll write the next header. This one should be in quotes. Forgetting a quote here. I'd just like to cut this out. Now create a quote at once and paste it within. Then the next header will be total cost price. Next header will be total selling price. Next header will be the profit. Next header will be the percent profit. So at the end, remember at the end we should always enter a new line. So we shall put /n such that it will always jump to the new line. After writing this header, it should enter to a new line. So we shall come and now describe something on top here. Now, what shall we describe on top here? This will be like a condition which will allow us to write headers first before any data is written. So we shall come here and we say, I'll put an if statement here, and I say if, I'll say if, then I'll come outside just like this. Why did I write this one? Not better. I'll write it like this. So what will I specify? Inside here I'll put this. I'll put this within like this. So I'll say if the file dot tell p is equals to 0. So here what will I be defining? Like I said earlier, it will allow us to write the headers first before any other data is written. So we shall say if file dot tell, hope I've written it well, if it refuses to dot tell p, open brackets like that, then is equals to 0. So we are going to first take up the heading and find out whether it is not used. So in case it is not, it is equal to 0, we shall first write the headings. So that is how you would briefly write the headings before any other data is added to the file. So after this, we shall now create a maze object or the maze variable that will help us to store the data. So remember, after creating the structure, we had to now we have now to write the data to the file. So let us create a maze object from the structure. So the structure had the name cells like this. So we shall define the maze structure by saying cells. I'll call it the maze. Let me just call it maze. So within here, I will define the variables which will be stored within from the maze. So the first is the cost price. Then the second is the selling price. Hope I'm capturing it well, because it may look like selling price. Let me write it on one line. Selling price. Okay, I'm going to define this because I wanted to store the data after it has been captured. So I'll not define it here. Immediately after the data has been entered, just below here, actually somewhere here, after the profit has been determined, I want to add the data to the structure named maze. So I'll come here and I say first one is the cost price, the next one is the selling price, then the next one is the total cost price, then the next is the total, hope I've written it well, total cost price. Let me just copy it from here. Okay, it is there. Let me also copy the total selling price. Now copying may save a lot of time. And I'll also take the profit, and I'll lastly take the percentage profit. Just copy this, paste it here. So this is how we would write the new, should I say, writing the structure, the objects, the maze object from the structure. So after that, let us now add all records to the vector. Remember, we created a vector up here named maze data as a vector. So we are going to add all this data. Remember, this is now a new, should I call it a new structure. So we are going to get the data and we add it to the vector. So I will define the vector, and then I will now define .pushback. So what am I pushing back? I'm pushing back the result from maze. Remember, this is now like a new structure. Okay, this is now an object of a structure which is carrying the data. So I'll push back data from maze, just like this. So whatever will be coming from this object of this structure will be pushed back to the vector and stored there. So let us now go and write each record. Remember, this comes as a record. So let us now go and write each record to the file, to the CSV file. So we shall say write each record to the CSV file, each record to the CSV, like this. So we shall say file, we shall write the first record. I may write it downwards. The first record will be the cost price. At the end, put a comma like this. So I'll skip and organize it at a line like that. The next will be the selling price. Also put a comma at the end, just like that. The next will be the total cost price. So I'll also put a comma at the end which separates the results. Then I'll also create the total selling price. What have I done here? Total selling price. So I'll also separate it from the others with a comma. I'll also create the profit. I'll also separate it from the bottom one with a comma like that. So I'll lastly compute the percentage profit. And I'll also, okay, this one I'll put a new line such that if a new record is added, it is sent to the new line, just like this. Put /n \n, just like that. Like that, whenever a new record is added, it is sent direct to a new line. So if you want, you can write this in a single line. I prefer to write it that way. So after this, I'll have to display message and say the record has been added. So we are adding this new record. It has been added. We shall say end line. So we shall now go and test this and see what will happen. Actually, let me bring this back to this line like this. So after we have done all this, it should now print the result and say new data has been added. So that is how you would send new data to a file, to the file we have defined here. So I'm seeing some kind of error here. I'll come back and add semicolon here. So I think that one will settle that. So let us now go and run. When we run, it should create a CSV file named the maze.csv. So if not, we shall come back and check for any errors. So when we run, it will start well. So when you choose maze, you realize maze.csv file has been added. So let us add values, some cost price, selling price, quantity. So to add that, now the program ends. So that is now where we are going to proceed from the next section. So if you come and open the maze file, you realize there is some data here. So it is not appearing like a CSV. It seems like I should come to the extensions marketplace and I do something such that it is read as a CSV. So let me go ahead and check through, and I find the extension which can support this be read as a CSV. Then I'll come back and proceed in the next lecture. So go ahead, finish up here writing the data to a CSV, and we shall come back and proceed. Alright, welcome back. Now let us straight away Previously we had looked at this, but I had already explained this. Use of a structure and a vector to create a CSV. We had already seen that. So the question we had posed in section oral lecture 8, what happens if a user enters text? Still, we have a question, what if a user enters text in the input? So why is validation important? Remember, we don't want user to just enter anything. That's one of the reasons. So we're asking more questions. Why is validation important? Which library would you use to visualize this data? If you're in Visual Studio Code like this, then how do you create a dashboard? So let us go to the next section. By the end of this section, we expect you to use a while loop to control the flow of a program and run the console application. So the question is, how would you display error messages differently in the console program? So let us start straight away. Now, in this section we are saying, by the end you should know how to use a loop to control the structure. Now, when we run this program, it gave us a menu. It gave us a menu like this. So if you selected beans, let's say you've selected beans, enter the cost price of beans. I'll enter as 230. I'll enter the selling price as 300. Enter the quantity as 34. So the program ends here. So I want it to flow over and again. So to handle this, we shall bring in the use of the while loop. So specifically we shall use the do while loop, where we shall tell it to do this menu. Where is the menu? We shall tell it to keep doing this menu until a certain condition is reached. Remember, this is the menu, having the maize, beans, and others. So in the previous lecture, I had mentioned that we shall look at, remember when we had to see this CSV file, it was not organized. So for us to see an organized one, come to the extensions marketplace and look for Rainbow CSV and install this extension. It has over 17 plus million active downloads and installations. So come and install the Rainbow CSV. You'll be able to see this CSV file live, just like this. So you can get other extensions like the Excel viewer. They can also be helpful. First connect to the internet, then come and search for Rainbow CSV. You'll have to use that extension. Now we are now going to do a loop on this. So we shall come down here and we say, actually this was not a function call anymore. We have called it a function down here. Actually we are supposed to put it here and say call the function. Remember, comments are very important in a program because they help you to always remember what was happening. So even though mine have not added several comments, but whenever you're writing a program, you write a line like this, describe it. This was, let me describe mine here shortly. This was writing actually I described it here, writing the file headers. So you can describe this and say we are writing file headers such that any data which comes is sent to a new line. So we shall come back here where we are going to write the while loop. Shall use a do while loop. Shall use a do while loop to make sure we loop through the program until we terminate it at our own choice. Shall use a do while loop just like that. So to use a do while loop, you write do, open curly brackets. Then down here at the end, we now come and write the condition which will terminate while. So you do while a certain condition is true. So when it runs into false, the loop terminates. So what are we going to do? We are going to do this. We are going to do this, shall cut this and paste it within here. So indentation has failed. I have to select the whole of this and I indent it inwards. So we shall do this this one here, while when it is 2 or 3 will break automatically. Let me see if it is 3. Sorry, if it is not 3, because I want it to run such that when it is 3 or 4, the loop terminates automatically. So actually 3 is okay, but if it is 4, let us say the user has entered 4, we should be able to terminate the program. So let me take a cup of water and I come back and proceed. Alright, welcome back. Now what I was explaining here is a little bit different. Now what I want to achieve here, I may not do it from here. I will do it from down here. I will come down here and I create a main function. Up there I will terminate just something. I'll create a main function. This function will also be of the void return type. I'll call it main menu, just like this. So within here, I'll now paste the whole of this line. So I hope I wrote my function well. Within here is where I'll paste the whole of this line, just like this. I'll come up here, then I call the main menu. From my functions here, I'll call the main menu void main menu, just like this, so that I don't see those errors. So within here, I will do such that when a user, remember I want to run this main menu, the main menu. Hope my function, okay, the function I didn't open and close parentheses, that's why it is misbehaving. So I want my main menu to be displayed. If not, we terminate the program. So that's what I'm going to do here. So up here, I'm going to say do, what am I going to do? I'll display message and say, actually I'll display message from up here. Display message from up here and I say welcome, cout, and I say welcome to the profit calculator. You can give yours a different welcome message. So I'll put here some equal signs just for decoration. Nothing big or smart is here, just like this. So within here, I will now display a message for the user to choose. So we shall say, please choose an option below. And I'll end line like this. So I'll put here a list of items. The first item will be quit. So I'll continue. Then the second item, I'll put a new line. Then the second item will be quit. And I'll end the line here also like this. So I'll accept input. I'll define the input here in the variables. Here I'll define it as int user input. So you should know how you specify your variables such that they are not mixed up. I'll define int user input such that whatever the user will enter is what I'll capture. So I'll use the switch. Remember we have used the switch before. I'll use the switch to switch between the responses which the user will give me. So case, if it is 1, the user has entered 1, what will I display? I'll say, I'll call the main function. If the user wants to continue, I'll call the main function here like this. So If the user doesn't want to continue, case 2 wants to quit, case 2. So if the user wants to quit, we shall first display a message and say, thank you for using this program. Just like this. And then end line. Remember, I didn't break here. It should be broken. Should break it from here. Then we shall also break this from here. So the default case, if a user has not entered any of those requirements, default cout shall display message and say you have not entered a valid input. Try again later. So shall come and also end line just like this. So we shall do this while the user choice is not equals to 2. While shall say while, and did I write it well? It is not like this. While user choice condition, what am I saying? While user choice is not equal to, we write it like this, not equal to 2. So immediately it is 2. The do while loop will terminate. So you end it with a semicolon like this. So I should check why it is bringing this error. It is saying there's an error here. Okay, the error is coming because I didn't close a colon here. So I think that one is sorted. So this one will help us to run the program over and again. Let us go back and try running this again. Let me remove these extra spaces. Let us run this again. I'll pull the terminal upwards. So the first question will be, I think my prompt is not here. Please choose an option to continue. I should put an end line here. End line. Either this one is pushed to the next line. So I'll come and run this program again. I'll terminate this. Control C to terminate. I'll come and run this again. So please choose an option below. You want to quit? Let us try quitting. Yes, quitting is working. Thank you for using this program. Come back again and use it again. So if it's continue, it will come and go and run the main menu. So the main menu, we shall have to come and choose option 1. When you choose option 1, it will say enter the cost price, enter some tentative values like this. Then it will again look back. Remember, it has said here that your business is doing well. The record has been added to the CSV. Remember, we are creating a CSV. Then it goes back. Please choose an option to continue. I'll choose option 1 to continue. Then I'll again choose option 1 for maize. I'll enter the maize selling price. I'll enter the cost price, and then the selling price, and the quantity. So the program will keep looping like that until I terminate by option 2, like that, and it terminates. So when we come back into our directory here and we look for the maize CSV file, it is this one here. You realize we have data here. Now, unfortunately, we have to double check because the data is coming in a mixed way. Remember, it is putting a header, then the value, the header, then the value. So let us go back and check this at this point. Let me first delete this. Let us go back and check this at this point where we created the CSV, somewhere here where we pushed the values to the CSV such that it doesn't repeat the headers. I think the headers were here. Let us check this from here. Okay, we needed to also, anyway, I've already entered here into a new line. So Let me double check such that we don't have that mess again. Let me double check, then I come back and proceed. Alright, I think I've seen where we should make a change. The first thing, after running this file, we didn't close it, and then we should make sure it loops. We should create a loop such that this data is written in such a way that this data is appended to the headers. So the new data which is going to be computed here, we shall create a loop inside here. I think let me push that to the next lecture, so that we shall create a loop which will help us to enter this new data to these headers, not creating the headers afresh and then again running it again. So let us pause here, then we come back and proceed again in the next one. Alright, welcome back. Now we shall create a loop such that these values are appended to these headers, not running through. Actually here it is running through, it creates a header, it enters the values, creates the headers, enters the values. Now we shall make sure we first create a loop to loop through all this line of code, and then we shall close the file at the end, file.close, and then the loop will run while a condition is true. We shall create a while loop and say while true like this. So while true, we shall run the whole of this code. I'll come and cut it out, the whole of this, come and cut it out, and I'll paste it here. Hope the indentation has failed. I'll have to select the whole of this up to somewhere here, and I indent it inside like this. So we shall create the headers, then down here we shall come and close the file, file.close, like this. So let us try to run this. So it will create the headers, then come and create the data. Sorry, come and now write the data. So let us run it again. Let me want to continue. 1 for maize, and I'll enter some data. I'll enter some data again. Quantity. So it will say, please enter the maize cost price. I'll enter. Remember, it is now not showing the menu. So since it is not showing the menu, it means it is looping within only maize, the maize function. So if I enter again, I enter another data like this. So it is looping within maize only, and it is not closing. I'll Control C to cancel that. So if you come and see the CSV file, let us see what, actually, since we didn't close the CSV, no data has been written. So no data has been written to the CSV. So we shall come back to our program, and we shall put a terminating condition somewhere here. Let us put a terminating condition. Terminate the loop. Shall terminate the loop from here. So we shall terminate the loop by asking the user, do you want, shall use yes or no. Do you want, should I say, do you want to proceed? Do you want to proceed? Anyway, let me just ask something like that. So I'll end the line. So I'll accept this through a variable. I'll create a variable named string user break. I want the user to break. So I'll come down here and I say, do you want to quit? So I'll say cin to accept what the user will put, that is user break. So I'll come and define an if statement here, and I say if, I'll say if the user break is equal to, if it is equals to y, sorry, if it is equals to x, sorry, do you want to quit? Let me put here, because if somebody wants to quit, somebody will press yes or no, enter y to continue, and x to quit. So what am I going to put? I'm going to put in such a way that if it is x, actually I'll make sure if somebody enters the uppercase x or lowercase x, it works the same. So if it is uppercase x or small case, what do I want to do? If it is uppercase x, it will quit. If it is smaller letter x, it actually, any of these will quit. So I'll display message cout, thank you for using the program. Thank you for using the program. Just like that, and I'll end line. Actually, it will be quitting maze only. Then I'll break. I'll also break this. So in case somebody wants to quit, in case somebody wants to continue, it is okay. In case somebody wants to quit, remember, we shall first ask, do you want to quit? Instead of just running in and out. So in case somebody wants to quit, we shall see what will happen if we break. So I think let us test this. Testing is important, and we see the progress. So the first question is choose an option below. Do you want to continue? I want to continue. I'll choose maze. I'll enter. I think I should change something here. Do you want to proceed? Enter y to continue and x to quit. If I enter x, x will quit and come back to the main function. So if I enter 1 and it asks me the question again, I'll enter y. If I enter y, it will proceed me to the cost price. Let me enter some data or some product. So it will again ask, do you want to quit? If I want to quit, I'll write x. If I want to quit here, I'll also enter 2 and I'll quit. Let me see my CSV file now. My CSV file now has written the headers again, but twice. It wrote it for the first time and wrote it again. We shall also solve this. So let us come back to, I think I was having a question here. Do you want to proceed? This was the question. It was, do you want to proceed? Enter y to continue and x to quit. So the headers are being written twice. This header is being written twice. For the first time and for the second time. Actually, it had to erase the data before it had to write the second data. So let me double check that, then I come back and proceed. Alright, let us proceed. Now I've checked through, but I can't see any errors. Let us run this program again. Remember, after putting this condition to help us terminate this area from this while loop, so such that in case when somebody enters x, it quits. When somebody enters y, you will proceed. Actually, I shall put y stroke capital Y, then x stroke uppercase x, just like that. So let us run this again. So the first choice for us to enter will continue. So it will ask whether the product I want to choose is maize. Then I'll have to enter some cost price, enter some selling price, then enter the quantity sold. And then I hope I didn't enter something here. Let me Control C to terminate. Let me clear this terminal. Let me run this program again. I'll enter 1 and I'll choose maize. It will ask whether I want to proceed. I'll click Y to proceed, enter the cost price, enter the selling price, enter the quantity sold. So it will loop through and come back again and ask me whether I want to proceed. I'll click Y, then I'll enter some cost price, enter some selling price, I'll enter some quantity. Then it will ask again whether I want to continue or proceed, to terminate or proceed. I'll click X to terminate. I'll click again to terminate this. So let me see the CSV created. So the CSV is just smart like this. So this is the last one we have just entered, 340, 400. So we shall transfer the same idea to the rest. So what happens? Now what if somebody entered the quantity which is negative? Quantity should never be negative. You can't see negative 20 units. So you may come at a point where you are accepting the quantity here before anything proceeds, and you say validate, shall validate user quantity entered, user quantity entered. So come here and validate and say if quantity sold is less than or equal to 0. You can't say 0 quantity sold and then you want to compute the profit. If it is less than or equal to 0, then we shall display message and say please quantity can never be 0 or negative. Shall end the line and we shall break. Let us test this. I shall enter stubbornly, enter negative quantity. I'll enter 1, I'll enter maize to proceed, enter Y to proceed, enter the cost price, enter the selling price. You can also validate the selling price such that somebody should not enter a negative or 0 selling price. So you can also come and say if selling price is less than or equals to 0, you'll break. So let me enter negative 20 units. It will say please quantity can never be 0 or negative. It will come back to the main menu. So I'll click 1 to continue, just like that. So that is how you would validate that section such that users don't enter just anything. So we have to do the same for beans. Also creating the CSV. So I'm not going to rewrite this function. I'm going to copy this function the way it is. Copy all of this function for maize, and I'll paste it for beans, and I'll just edit. Remember, everything here I've almost created the same. I'll select the whole of this and I'll delete these functions, and I'll paste this, and I'll give a comment up here and I say func for beans, just to stand for function for beans. Change this to beans. Shall create a vector, shall call this beans.csv. Then I think I'll copy this. Whenever I'll get beans, I'll just paste. This one's okay. Creating the headers, then validating, ensuring the user is running. I'll paste this for beans. Like I said, I'm just going to change, enter the selling price, enter the beans selling price, enter the beans quantity, then please, quantity will never be negative. It will compute those things. Then it will come profit. This is okay. Now, when you come up here, creating the it comes to creating the vector, this will now be the beans vector. So it will be the beans vector. The cells shall still use the cell structure. Come down here and change this to beans. Shall create a beans object from the structure. This one will be the beans vector, where we are going to write data from beans, from this beans here. So I think everything will be updated just like that. This brings us to the end of this lecture. Let us catch up in the next one. Alright, welcome back to this lecture. So I'll copy this in case there are any repetitions anywhere. We shall see when we are testing. We shall test it 1, 2 before we go ahead to, if it is deployment for use, we shall test it before we deploy it for use. So I'll come back again and make changes here. This will be millet like this. I'll copy this and find whenever there is millet and I replace like here. So this is will be again millet data. I'll come here and I say this will be millet also .csv. The file which will be created, this is fine. When you come here, this is fine. Till you come to entering the product, shall also change this. So in case you realize somewhere we have not changed, just feel free to go back over there and change. Shall also use here millet. Shall create a millet. I hope I've changed it up here. That is the millet vector, which will store the data in memory. So this will be millet. Actually, it is millet. It is okay. So this will be millet also. So I think everything is perfect and running. Let us run the program and we choose any of those two options. ID return exist, main function. Let me see where it is returning the error from. So this now brings us to the next phase of debugging for errors. I hope the error might be easier for me to see. Let me first clear this. Let me run again. Hope it will help me see where the error is. Unfortunately, it is not showing the line where the error is. It is saying ID returned 1 exit status. Oh, wait. I have erased the main function. Let me undo all these changes because I've erased the main function. Can you imagine? While selecting down here, I erased this. I erased the main function. I'll undo again because I've written the main function just down here. I'll undo again. Okay. Let me see. Undo again. Let me see. Somewhere here. This is the beans function. I'll undo. Let me come back down, because down here there was a main function. Undo this, and undo this. So I also erased the main function. I was supposed to only erase these ones here, the millet and the maize and the beans function. Come and erase these ones here. So in case you are erasing, just scrolling down throughout, be careful before you erase even sensitive data. So I'll come and paste this, come and put another line and paste this. So let me go and make the edits like the way I was making at first. So I'll pause the video, I make the edits, then I come back and proceed. Okay, welcome back. Now I've managed to make those changes according to the way we're supposed to make it. So I'll come and now run this, and to run perfectly, I'll click continue. I'll select beans, that's option 2. It will ask whether I want to proceed. It will ask for the beans, cost price, the selling price, quantity sold. So it will compute and come and create the beans CSV file. So I'll again enter another record. I want to proceed, yes. I'll enter another record, 300, 400, 34. You want to proceed, I'll enter X to quit and enter 2 to quit. So if I come here, I have the bin CSV here, where I entered 400, 300, 400, something like that. So that is the bin CSV. I'll delete this. Let me try the maize. The maize I finished. Let me try the millet as we conclude. So like I said, also validate the cells, the total cells, what somebody enters. So what the user enters. Let me also run and also go for millet. Millet is option 3. It will also ask whether I want to proceed. I'll enter Y, enter the cost price, enter the selling price, enter 500, quantity I'll enter 50 units. It will ask whether I want to proceed. Yes. I'll enter 450 for cost price, 580 for selling price, 34 units. I'll terminate with X, then quit with 2. So if I come to the millet CSV, you'll have something like this. So 450, 580 is the data I entered. So we shall have the profit, we shall have the percentage profit. Actually, it is saying profit is 100%. So you can double check and see whether the profit is actually 100%. In case if this is the total selling price and this is the profit, I think we should check that area, because this can't be the total cost price and this is also the total selling price. Let us double check that area. Now we are checking the program before we, in case it was unexecutable before you send it to the user. Let me check for maize to help me to check for the rest of the other functions. Maize, we said profit is equals to total selling price, and where we say total selling price is equals to selling price times the quantity, then the total cost price is equals to cost price times the quantity. So if we got the profit from, okay, there's a brander here. Instead of saying minus, we had to put equals. So this is minus. Then come down. I hope it is not appearing elsewhere. So logically, if you're developing the program, always make sure you do sufficient testing. It was at profit. It was at profit here, calculating the profit. So it was even affecting the percentage profit. Do sufficient testing. Perhaps even get somebody else to test for you the program before it is sent into deployment. Alright, let us run it again one more time. Come to play button and run. Do you want to continue? I'll click 1 to continue. I'll select millet because I've changed now for boss. Select Y to proceed. Enter the cost price, enter something like 320, 340, the selling price, the quantity is 45. And then do you want to proceed? I'll say yes because I want to add another value to the data, just like that. Quantity sold 54 units. I'll terminate with X, terminate with 2. I'll come and open this. I think now it makes some sense. The percentage profit is 6.9, 6.25. So I think this is now computed rightly. If you get this is the total cost price, the total selling price, the difference is this. I think that is true because this is 27,000. This is 24,000. The difference is 2,000, right? So this is the percentage profit. So this is how you would create a fully automated console application to capture the profit of different products. So however, we still had questions which were pending. So how do you show errors in case errors would appear? So we still have more questions which we should keep analyzing. If made has the highest profit, this is now more of interpretation. If made has the highest profit, what factors contributed to that? Now, this is now as a business person. Can a product have high revenue but low profit? So how does changing quantity affect the cost price? So in case you've reduced the quantity, how will the cost price, how does changing quantity affect the total profit? So in case the quantity reduces, what will be the repercussion on the profit? So which product contributes most to the percentage profit and why? So you can go back and do that further analysis and find out the product which contributes the percentage profit the highest. How could this data help the trader make business decisions? So after collecting this data, maybe at the end of the day, how do it help the trader to make further decisions? So this brings us to the end of this section. In the next section, we are going to introduce the most crucial one, where we are going to use Excel VBA. This time around, we shall put it in Excel. So you can quickly, in case you're familiar with Excel, create charts and also do further analysis using maybe pivot tables and Power Query. So go ahead, finish up here, and we meet in the next one. Alright, now we have this task here. Now, how would we solve this task using AI? We would go and copy this. Then we go and prompt AI to write for us a prompt. Let me open my browser. Now we shall use DeepSeek. Come and find DeepSeek. You can use any AI model of your choice. Come and open DeepSeek. So within here, we shall now paste the task. So however, we shall add, here it was create a program that calculates traders' profit. So we shall say, we shall put in bracket and we say create this program. Remember, giving an extra prompt to AI is better. Create this program such that it can be dynamic to handle other products. So we shall also say use Python. So remember, we have a variety. You can now prompt it to use Visual Basic, you can prompt it to use C++, HTML, JavaScript. So in my case, I'll just tell it to use Python. Let us see what it will deliver. So you can write better prompts so that it does for you something better than this. So it will start creating this, and you realize maybe what we did was not very standard, but we may be on track. Look at this. So something like this, dynamic implementation. So you can compare with yours you have developed. So after testing your knowledge, you can now come and ask AI to do for you something like this. So you can copy the code or download, then you can run it and see how the project developed by AI looks. Alright, go ahead, test both AI and also your own. Remember, your own thinking helps you to solve more problems. and also understand the syntax, because after it has done all this, at least you must have knowledge of how it made some of these calculations. That's why AI is here, but it is here to help us be effective. Have your own ideas, understand almost, you may not understand everything, but understand something small, because you may need to go ahead and look at a few more details, even so the very AI can do debugging for you and other tasks. So go ahead, explore AI, explore your own coding, and let us meet in the next lectures. Alright, now after developing the whole project, the process is not done. There's a lot of learning through. Now there are some of the recommendations I've outlined here. Now these recommendations, while in the field, you'll get more recommendations. I'm still a manual Dudu and I'm instructor in this area still. So some of the recommendations after building the project, remember we have built the graphical user interface, we have built a website which can compute calculations, we have built something in Excel. So there's something we should look out for: input validation and sanitization. This is one of the further recommendations. So make sure all user inputs are validated and sanitized to prevent injection or invalid data processing. So for example, validate numerical inputs to ensure they are within expected ranges. Then file limit access, avoid writing CSV files like the way we did. So to unrestricted locations, use a dedicated directory with restricted permissions. So an example, store CSV files to secure subdirectories. So also error handling, ensure all exemptions are properly caught. So other recommendations include also avoid hard coding sensitive data. So if your application requires sensitive data such as API keys, database credentials, avoid hard coding them. Then restrict external libraries. Ensure you only use trusted libraries also. Ensure file permissions are secure. Set appropriate file permissions for CSV files such that there is no unauthorized access. Then also use virtual environments. So run your Python in a Python virtual environment to isolate dependencies and reduce risk of dependency-related vulnerabilities. So update dependencies. There are some dependencies which have been, duplicated, something like that, whereby the developers are no longer maintaining them. So always update and download new ones. So secure the graphical user interface by limiting the functionality of graphical user interface to only what is necessary. An example, disable drag and drop features or clipboard access if not needed. So in case there is no need for copying and pasting, so you can disable the clipboard. So logging and monitoring, implement logging to monitor user actions and detect suspicious behavior. So use Python's logging module to log events. So if you're in a website, also check out what can best support you in that. So prevent code injection, that is point 11. Avoid using the evil function. That one is used mostly if you're doing calculations. So in graphical user interface applications. So avoid using them as they can execute arbitrary code and pose a security risk. The beautiful thing is there are other alternatives to them. Secure dependencies. Use tools like pip audit to check for known vulnerabilities in your dependencies. So by implementing these measures, you can significantly improve the security of your application and reduce the risk of malicious activities. So in case you're excited to learn with me again, go ahead, finish up here and let us meet again.